Hey, and welcome to Unlearning Stress, the podcast where we break the rules and cycles that keep you overcommitted, overstretched, and just plain exhausted, and replace them with something better. No fluff, no guilt, just real talk, real solutions, and expert insights to help you shift the way you live. Whether you're here for the first time or you've been with me for a while, you're in the right place. I'm Michelle O'Neill, your resident emotional wellness coach, and I'm here to help you unlearn the patterns that are wearing you down so you can live with more ease, clarity, and control. Let's get to it. How many times have we told ourselves, I'll just rest when things slow down? But you know what? When does that happen? Slow down? What's that, a joke? I used to think slowing down meant waiting until the next vacation, the next long weekend, or when life magically, miraculously gave me a break. For me, slow down looked like a 7 or 8 day cruise because at least there I was cut off from the constant notifications, the phone calls, and the internet because I was not going to pay that crazy cost just to be on social media. But even then, it wasn't real rest. I filled the time with shows, with activities, with exploring ports. It was all busy, but in a different way. And back home, I'd tell myself I'd slow down when the season ended. But really, that season never ended. There was always another call, another email, another task waiting. And even if I carved out an hour, my mind was still racing with things that I had left undone. If you're waiting for life to slow down before you stop, you'll never stop. That pause will never come on its own. And you and I both know something will always interrupt it. That's why the shift isn't waiting for slowdown, it's learning to take it right here, right now, in the middle of everything. And we're going to talk more about that today. Now, next week, we'll go even deeper in how to actually integrate this into your life so it doesn't feel like one more thing to add to your list. But I want to be really clear. Most of us think that rest has to be this big chunk of time, a weekend away, a vacation, a whole day with nothing scheduled. And since I don't have that, I just keep pushing. Is that you? Was I talking to you? I know this one well. And for me, it wasn't just vacations. It even showed up in the way I worked. I used to think if a project came in, I had to knock it out right away before something else piled on. My team would hear me say, don't wait until you've got a big block of time. Just do it now, and then you won't have to worry about it when something else comes in and disrupt it. But the problem was, I was working hard from the very beginning. And then when more things came in, I was still working just as hard. No let up, no pause. Everything became urgent. Even though I'm conscientious with time, I can tell you exactly this is how bad it is. I can tell you exactly how long a task should take. Life doesn't work that way. Something I thought would take 15 minutes could stretch into 3 hours, and especially when it became tech. You think it's a computer problem that it should only take 15 minutes to download this and get it set up. And next thing you know, 3 hours later, you're on the phone talking to the help desk because you can't get it working, right? So here's what happens. Whether you're waiting for the perfect block of time or trying to get ahead of everything, you end up in the same place. No breathing room, no margin. And eventually, your body forces the stop through exhaustion, stress, or burnout. And that's not real rest. What that is collapse. What I had to learn was to leave lead time. to build in space for the unexpected, to stop planning my life to the T because life doesn't follow a script. I don't care how well you wrote it. And until we see that, we'll keep believing rest has to be big and perfect when really what we need is just space right in the middle of life. So let me be honest. Most of the breaks we call rest aren't rest at all. For me, it looks like getting up from my desk and going to the bathroom or making a quick run for coffee. And I told myself, see, I took a break. I got up. I got away from the computer. But that wasn't rest. That was just stepping away for a minute so that I could come right back and keep going. In fact, a lot of times I didn't even take lunch. My lunch was still sitting at my desk, looking at my computer, doing something on my computer. And it wasn't looking at social media or that. It was actually accomplishing work. Now, sometimes I think, well, at least I talked to someone today. I took a break and we had a 5 minute conversation, a quick conversation, or even a family member. But well, my mind was still going a mile a minute. In fact, a lot of times when I'm sitting there and I'm talking to them, my mind's on the next thing either I want to say or I need to do. And I'm not even focused on who I'm talking to. And so that wasn't real rest either. It was just another responsibility in disguise, something I felt that I needed to do. Working from home made it even trickier because I could convince myself that starting a load of laundry or stirring something in the crock pot was taking a break. Folding clothes, putting them away, those became my pauses, but it wasn't true rest either. That was just trading business work for housework, but it was still work. And look, I don't know if you fooled yourself like I did, but during COVID, that pattern showed up even more because when the world shut down and we were forced to slow down, I still wasn't resting. In fact, the truth is, I really didn't slow down. I'd get up from my desk to put in a load of clothing or to stir what was in that crock pot, and I'd tell myself I was taking a break. You heard me say that earlier. But really, I was just shifting one work for another, even in the global slowdown. I couldn't let myself stop. And you see, we did it then, and we're still doing it now. Even the things I love, like cooking, sometimes turned into that same pattern. Yeah, it can be joy. I really enjoy creating a new recipe or finding new ways to make healthy things taste better. But other times it was just another chore that was squeezed in while telling myself I was stepping away. Yeah, stepping away from the computer, but that doesn't mean my mind stepped away. And I wonder if you've done the same, calling it a pause or a break, but really all you did was switch the kind of work you were doing. Here's the thing, science actually tells us that your body and brain don't register those quick task switches as rest. In fact, researchers talk about something called attention residue. And it means that when you stop one test and start another, your brain still clings to the first one. So even while you're folding laundry, part of your mind is still at work. No wonder you don't come back refreshed. And that's why that fallacy of what we call multitasking is a fallacy, because even though you switch from one task to another, your brain is still working the one you just left. So you really are just task switching. And psychologists have found that chores don't trigger that same restorative response as actual true rest. Instead of calming your nervous system, they actually keep you in the doing mode. And your body might be moving slower, but your mind never, ever gets to release. So what happens? We think we're pausing, but we never let our nervous system shift gears. And that's why Even after that coffee run that I would do at work, or the laundry that I would do at home, or that quick chat I'd do on the phone with a family member or with one of my coworkers at work, we just come back just as drained as before because our mind didn't have that chance to do that shift that it needed to do. Look, so let me ask you, when you think about your own days, what are you calling rest that isn't actually rest? I know I gave you some examples, so I want you to look back over your days and let me know. You know, energy doesn't come back through escape, it comes back through presence. And this was a hard one for me to learn because I would go on vacations, escape from things, and I still come back just as tired. And so for me, the biggest shift wasn't finding more hours or planning the perfect vacation. It was actually learning how to slow down in the middle of what I was already doing. When I went for a walk, instead of letting my mind run full force, I started soaking in what was around me, the changing colors of the trees, the way the air felt and smelled, even the animals that would cross my path, things like squirrels, deer, snake, skunk, and even a turtle that I helped across the street once. How often do we get to just be present and aware of things like that? So suddenly it wasn't just exercise, that walk, it was wonder. When I fold laundry, instead of just rushing through it, I thought about the person each piece of clothing belonged to, or the memories that would come forth because of when I last wore that or when I last saw them in that. And sometimes I'd even whisper a prayer for that person. Sometimes I'd just smile and think fondly of the last time I had a hug from them. The task didn't change, but the way I showed up in it did. Cooking shifted too for me. It wasn't just about getting food on the table. Sometimes I'd invite, my husband, the kids, someone in the kitchen with me. And it became a moment of bonding and laughing and trying to get around the kitchen and see who would bump into each other and just creating together. And even doing dishes with my husband, or sometimes he's doing the dishes and I'm doing the dishes, and the other one of us is just sitting at the table having a conversation, but being present with each other. It just turned into time together instead of another chore. And our conversation, those became different too. Instead of half listening while my mind raced ahead to the next thing, remember I told you about that, right? I actually slowed down enough to hear, to really be present with the person in front of me. And I notice it even now when I'm on the phone. If I'm at my computer typing and half listening, the conversation feels flat. And half the time, I don't even remember what they told me. But when I stop, when I choose to focus on them and what they're saying, the whole tone of the conversation changes and I enjoy the conversation because I'm connecting and I'm actually learning something about that person, even though I feel like I knew them so well before and it feels completely different. That's the reframe, presence. Because when you're present, you naturally slow down, you naturally let go of that frantic doing and step into just being. And presence itself is restorative. It doesn't require money, it doesn't require hours blocked off. It just requires a choice to anchor yourself in the moment that you're already in. Think about your own days. When was the last time you gave someone your full presence? Not multitasking, no half listening, no scrolling in the background, just you and them. And you're fully there. That's not escape. That's real rest. I was thinking the other day before I go on and about coffee. I was talking to someone about coffee and how there's just something different about having a cup of coffee and sitting there and savoring it and feeling the warmth as your hand is around the cup and smelling that. Oh, I just think it's the best aroma in the world of the coffee. And then as you take a sip, just feeling that warmth and tasting that unique taste slide down your throat. You see how present I am? But there's something else that takes place when you're having that cup of coffee. Whether you're by yourself and you're sitting there and soaking in all those feelings and emotions I just told you about, or whether you're in a barista or a coffee place, and you're sitting there taking in your environment and hearing other conversations, even though you're not really attentive, and listening to the sounds, being present there with that cup of coffee, or even just inviting a friend over and you're sitting together and you say, hey, why don't you just come over and we have a cup of coffee together and listen and watch it how your conversation just grows into something amazing, something wonderful. That's presence. And it's something about a cup of coffee or a cup of tea that really cultivates that presence. So here's what I want you to try this week. Don't wait for a vacation. Don't wait for the season to slow down. Just start with this one simple thing. I want you to practice presence. I want you to pick one moment every day, just one. Maybe it's when you're talking to your child or your mom, but make the effort to actually listen. How many times as a mom have you been talking to your child and you hear these words, "Mom, you're not listening." And you know what? You probably won't. Or you're talking to your mom and you're on the phone, but you're working at your computer at the same time. And she says, "Girl, are you listening to me? What are you doing?" And you can't hide it there either. So maybe it's when you're folding laundry or cooking, or like I said, even drinking your coffee. Here's the thing I want you to do in that moment. Whatever it is for you in that moment, I want you to give it, or her, or him, or it, the full attention, your full attention. No phone in your hand, no mental checklist, just you, fully present. Because presence is where the reset happens. It's not about having more hours, it's about giving yourself back to the hour that you already have. And when you do, your body lets down its guard. Your brain stops spinning and you leave that moment more filled instead of more drained. You don't have to get it perfect. This isn't about performing presence or pretending. It's about practicing it once a day, that's all. And when you do, notice what changes. Notice how even one conversation feels different when you're fully there. Notice how your energy shifts when you stop splitting yourself in five different directions. This week, your action isn't escape, it's presence. And next week, we'll take this even further because practicing presence once a day it's powerful. But integration is when those small pauses begin to weave into your whole rhythm. That's where the lasting shift comes in. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I want more of this, not just an idea to try, but an experience to actually feel it in my own life, I want you to know that I occasionally open a few spots for my 3-day experience. It's where we go deeper together privately, you and me, not in theory, but in practice. We'll look at the loudest pattern running your life right now and begin breaking it so that you can step into more alignment, more energy, and more presence. I don't open these spots all the time, and when I do, they go quickly. So if this is tugging at you, I want you to click the link in the show notes and you'll find all the details there. Until next time, I'm glad we had the time to sit here and chat together. Now take care. See you next time. Bye-bye. If this episode hits home, don't just push it aside. Lean into it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And connect with me on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Substack, where we go even deeper. Links will be in the comments. And if you're ready to start unlearning the patterns that keep you stuck, keep listening, because real change happens one choice at a time. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.